Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Circle of Eight podcast. I'm your host, This One IBC. Alongside with my other brothers from another mother, I have Mr. Matt, Q Steamboat, Mr. MGC, the Karen Beater, the Seidels, the Buddy Murphys, whatever the Matt's world we have. And we also have the Great American Hero with the 12-inch pythons. And he says, no, that's Mr. American Hero, Mike Lopez. And of course, we have CK1, Chris Tanner. Today, joining us this evening with this interview, finally, we got him on the podcast. It's an honor to have him here tonight. He is your current Arizona State Championship Wrestling champion, and he's also your current Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Heritage champion, and that is the man himself, Ray Rosas. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing great, doing real good. I'm honored to be on the show. Sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. And believe me, I mean, I've met you and Peter Avalon a year and a half ago at Baldwin Park. So I mean, I've been a big fan of your work. I've always, I've been going to every show, to go see you and to see, Peter as well. Because come on, I love PPRAY. I gotta love it, bro. I mean, hey, believe me, even in my homegirl that I took, she was a big fan of yours. Like, she always wanted to be in the front, putting the dollars, putting those dollars right there, Bro, once again, appreciate you for joining us. So let's go ahead and start this off, Mr. Rosa. So let's start from the beginning. So what started, for you to pursue pro wrestling? What caught your eye, and how did it all begin? How did Ray Rosas begin?
Well, man, just like I think anybody else that came up, in my age, was just a big fan of the Attitude Era. Being a young, impressionable kid, being alive in the Monday Night Wars as they're happening. It's just a great time to be a fan. Of course, you had like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, guys like The Undertaker, and then on WCW you have like Sting and the Cruiserweights and Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg. Man, like. Those are the good old days, and you don't even realize that's what those were. I was a pretty, growing up, I was a pretty shy kid, believe it or not. But I liked the aspect of performing. I liked, I was in a drama, I was in theater, so I liked acting, I liked performing, and wrestling was just kind of a good way to be. To be able to perform and man, I liked all what really caught my eye was all the vignettes and build-it videos for like a feud, like they would do a hype package before a match or a pay-per-view. Those always really caught my eye. I think the Highway to Hell build-it video to SummerSlam '98 with Steve Austin and The Undertaker. I remember that one vividly. And then of course like WrestleMania 17's hype video. The Rock and Steve Austin with Limp Bizkit. I mean, I probably wouldn't have liked Limp Bizkit as much as I did if it wasn't for that hype package.
You're allowed. It's a guilty pleasure, man. No judgment. I feel you right there with that.
It's the same thing with Marilyn Manson and the SmackDown. Like if it wasn't SmackDown.
Oh man, I forgot about that. Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Kid Rock and American Badass too, like.
Yeah, like all that new metal.
The new metal was everywhere. It still is, for sure. It still is.
But it was like it fit on WWE like a hand in glove, the new metal and their hype packages and WWE. But and then move on to actually doing like backyard wrestling with your friends and doing it for way longer than you probably should have. I think I was like in my early 20s and still doing it. And then I decided to, find a place to train and learn how to become a wrestler. Looked up websites, and back then, this was 2008, 2009. Like, the internet wasn't as advanced, and there wasn't as many resources as there is like nowadays. Like you can in LA, you can throw a rock and hit 3 wrestling schools or 3 places with the ring available for you to train in. But back then, like when I looked up stuff, it would only be like, the School of Hard Knocks over in San Bernardino and Slammers in Studio City. But at that point, Slammers had been out of business for like 10, 15 years. So that's how old some of the information was. It was hard. And then I stumbled across Santino Bros Wrestling Academy, I think by accident. I called them up to get some information. They didn't pick up, so I hung up. And then something made me pick it up and call again immediately right after, and then they didn't pick up again, so I hung up. They called me back right after, and then it was like did you call here? I was trying to get a hold of this, and they're like, yeah, well, this is us. Set up my so I called on a Friday to get information for the Santino Bros Wrestling Academy. They set me up for the orientation the next day. I get there, I drive because I lived in Lancaster up in the high desert, in the Antelope Valley, and I had to drive all the way to Moorpark and be there at 8 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And not Moorpark, Norwalk. I had to go to Norwalk and be there at 8 in the morning, and then do the orientation. And man, I was just so enamored. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a wrestling ring literally right here in front of me. Here's Joey Chaos, and I wasn't really familiar with Joey's XPW work. I was more familiar with his WSX work when he was part of Los Pochos Guapos. And so I was like, oh man, this is and then Mongo was there, and then Supreme and Angel, so all these guys were right here, and I'm like, this is so cool. And they put on a practice match for us to try to show off how far the students had progressed. And at the time, Santino Bros Wrestling Academy was brand new. It'd only been an established school for maybe 6 or 7 months. They hadn't even started running shows. The students that weren't even doing actual matches out in the circuit. So that's how young it was. I was just sign me up right now. Where do I sign? Who do I pay? And then the following Saturday, I started my first day of class, and here we are, 11 years later. Been a long and tough journey. I remember that that first day. We're just doing squats, we're doing push-ups, and I didn't do any sports. I wasn't involved in any athletics in high school or in middle school or anything like that. So, the only thing that I've done anything as terms of physical fitness was I did a ROTC because I was planning to join the Marine Corps. Good thing I didn't.
Very good thing.
But so I did have a little bit of muscle, but not enough. So we're grappling. We're trying to submit each other, tap each other out, because you have to do a little bit of shoot fighting. At least there at Santino's, they were pretty big on that. And I must have threw up that first day probably about twice, and then I think 2 times that day, and then 1 time in the following 1 time a week for the following weeks, and then eventually your body just got used to it. But here we are.
That's awesome.
Real quick on that last subject you brought up about that hell day. I know back in the day, UPW used to actually have that same type of regimen for their rookies, and even on their first day. And I think with them, you had to pass that day before they would even accept your money. Was it something like that at Santino's, or did you ran that day, and regardless if you made it through, were you in just because you paid, or was that the tryout and they decide on their roster based on that day?
Well, a little bit of both, really. Because they took my money as the down payment, but they didn't take the monthly fee just yet. And if I washed out, that was on me. It was
so they didn't decide they were like, this guy's not making it, we're not going to have him.
Yeah, they never. I think they in the entire because in that run, they were operating out of somebody's backyard. They were operating out of Rico Dynamite's backyard, of one of the wrestlers that trained me a little bit. So they had no overhead. They didn't have to pay for rent for a building. So they were very strict and very tough on a lot of students. So they maybe only cut 2 in those early years. Maybe only cut 2 people from the program, but everybody else just washed out. There's probably been hundreds and hundreds of potential, wrestlers that have come to start there and then have been washed out because of how tough the training was.
Right.
They didn't necessarily do a tryout. They just did that day. They would you would see the attendance drop from the first training session to the second training session. So you start off with maybe like 8 guys, and then you come back the next week and only have 3 or 4. Because so they would realize how tough it was. And one of the funniest things was that like you'd get some like really buff, beefy, athletic dudes come in and they would wash out, and then here I am like this 5'8", 5'7", depending if I'm wearing boots or not, 135-pound, 20-something-year-old kid with no athletic bone in his body, and I'm hanging in there, and it wasn't a matter of physical strength. It was more about like mental strength, your mental toughness, and how much passion and heart you had to continue to do this. I would get my nose busted. I'd have my lips split every single week. Getting in the ring with like Supreme and Angel, and they would just be messing me up. We'd have those chop days where you're getting baptized and you got to get chopped by all the trainers and then all the students. And you just those were terrible days. You dread those days. But you take it, and then you'd earn everybody's respect, and that's what I was like. Man, I was doing everything I could at those early days to just earn everybody's respect, all the trainers, all the other students, because at that point, like I said, the way that how tough the program was, everybody had dropped out of my class. Like I was the only one, so then I had to get bumped up or promoted to the class above me. So now I had to catch up and work at their level to stay in the program, so to speak. So here I am now, like training with people that were already been doing it for 6 or 7 months longer than I have, and keeping up with them. And I'm thankful for that. It helped prepare me for a lot of stuff that I would eventually face on the circuit.
Yeah, I think basically getting raised from green by that XPW roster, which I think they had a pay-per-view called Baptized in Blood.
Yeah,
you went through the gauntlet like immediately. Like you were with, I don't want to say worst is the negative thing, but like the toughest, grimiest motherfuckers in the SoCal scene. Like on your first day, and that is brutal to deal with.
They had a reputation, and and the fact that they had students, like they had to clean it up a little bit, the rep around the scene. And we had some brutal days because our ring was outside, and we trained in the heat, we trained in the rain, we trained in the cold, and it's just how much did you want it to be a wrestler, to do it, to follow the dream, and they beat the respect into us, and they put that toughness into us, and it was a lot like the military, because they break you down to build you back up stronger.
I always thought like the mentality whenever the weather's bad and you're wrestling in it is like your opponent's like, yeah, sure, the weather hurts, but my fist is going to hurt harder than this weather.
Right, yeah.
Like you want to make them hurt more than it is cold, or make it hurt more than it is hot. It's like
blood is thicker than rain.
My fist hurt more
training in the rain was bad.
Storm.
Do you recall your first match in Santino's when they first started the events?
Yeah. So what they had their first show, I think, in January. So like a month after I started training, they had the first show, and then I was just a cameraman. And so I just worked the camera around the ringside. And man, I remember being like, man, I can't wait to get in there. I want to get in there really bad, because I felt like I was ready, but little did I know that I was like far from ready. I think so. We actually started wrestling on. I actually started wrestling on a few shows on the circuit before I actually did an actual Santino show. So the 3 matches I remember in my early career was like doing a battle royal for a promotion called Hybrid Pro Wrestling. So the funny thing about that particular show was that I was the cameraman for the first half of the show. Mm-hmm. We go to intermission. I go to the back and I get dressed, and I had to put on a mask. And then the first match after the intermission was a student battle royal where I wrestled, where I had like my official like first match. And then I get eliminated. I go to the back. I change back into my clothes, and then I go back and film the rest of the show.
Dude, that is the indie scene in a nutshell, right? Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah, like
I think my first like match was me, and it was a tag match, and it's for some lucha company called Mexican Wrestling Federation, and it was in Commerce. and
Yeah,
it was
I remember
it,
them.
it was myself and Famous B, one of my best friends coming up in the you know, one of the guys that I always tried to keep up with. He was his top student, and I always tried to keep up with him, and we were always kind of neck and neck. So me and Famous B against Steve Payne and the rookie 88, who would then later on become Gino Rivera.
Ah,
Okay, so he started off under a mask as the rookie 88. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but if anybody didn't know, but just well, now you know,
Now
rookie
you know.
88 is Gino Rivera.
It's a work interview.
Speaking of names, Ray, does your name come from Raymond or Raymundo, or is it like a completely different thing, like John Ray or something like that?
No, I'm Raymond.
You're Raymond.
But yeah, and the funny thing about the whole Ray Rosas name is that I was originally I originally wanted to be called Ray Rose because I was a big Guns N' Roses fan.
Nice.
Big on that.
Right. The thing that sucks is like years later, I thought I was telling one of my students about how I was like, yeah, because I was Guns N' Roses, and he goes, man, think about it, you could have been Ray Gunn.
I was about to say.
Oh shit, man!
Right?
Or some alternate universe where there's Ray Gunn just tearing it up, just laser beaming people. Oh man! But
awesome.
so the change came because at MWF on their flyers, since it's a lucha libre company, they have a habit of like Mexicanizing names. So when Famous B first went to MWF, he was Fabuloso B, right? So when I went, they changed it from Ray Rose, so like the people are not gonna know what that is. They went to Ray Rosas, right? Or actually, I'd be Ray Rosas. The way that they don't, because Ray for them is R-E-Y and R-A-Y is Ray.
Right,
Roses.
Yeah, so I was Ray Rosas, and then I hated it. I was like, no, it's not my name. Oh, it's just stupid. I hate it. But Joey Chaos and his infinite wisdom decided, like, you know what? That's a good name, kid. You're just gonna keep that name. And I was like, man, I don't want to be Ray Rosas. That's just dumb. I hate it. And Angel, my other trainer, Angel Exotico, was like, oh, you should be Ray Rosas, and then you just roll the R's. Rosas, and you just try to hold it longer and longer each time the promo. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a young dumb kid. I'm like, all right, I don't want to do that, but I'll do it because you told me to do it. And it turns out to be like the calling card, and that's how people remembered me in those early years. It's like, oh, is that the guy Rosas? It does, and
So
now
cool.
they're making signs with all the R's, and they're just having like a bunch of R's, and you know.
I gotta make that sign too. When we go to the next dark show.
We all have to hold, like, you have to have like each one of us has 10 R's on it, and we sit next to
Yeah,
we would do that.
the guy at the end has the 06.
Mine will be like 30 R's, and then we'll try to outdo each other like every week to see who has the most R's.
Yeah. That's perfect.
That's how Ray Rosas came about. You know, man, just the Latin, either the Latin lover or the Latin hothead. You know, and then I grew a beard out, and then and it changed everything. Grew my beard out on a bet, and then I just kept it.
That's awesome.
Usually it's the other way around. Usually it's you lose the bet and you shave it, or did you win the bet?
I think like it started off as a New Year's resolution, and that's probably like the only New Year's resolution I've ever kept. It was like, you know what, this year I'm not going to shave at all. And then I had a big old beard, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep it. At first, my wife, she didn't really like it at first, and then like she started to like it, and then she's like, now you can't shave it because I love it too much. And I was like, all right, well.
Oh, that's rare. Usually you get rid of it.
So you mentioned that you grew up watching the Attitude Era, much like all of us did. Who were some of your favorite wrestlers from that era?
Man, of course, yeah, like, shoot. Of course, all the cruiserweights, right? All the WCW cruiserweights. So, like, Ray, Jericho, Benoit, Eddie, Dean Malenko, Hoovy, Psychosis, all those guys were, like, my favorite, you know. Chavo with Pepe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those, like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember, like, specifically just watching the cruiserweight matches and then, like, switching over to, like, watch the main event of like, Monday Night Raw. with
I
like
was
Steve.
constantly flipping between commercial breaks for sure.
Yeah, like Steve Austin was God, bro. Like, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think back on like how over he was, and like there's
Yeah.
never gonna be like a star like the magnitude of Steve Austin.
Yeah.
And The Rock too. You know.
Yeah.
Stars in the same era.
Yeah, it's so weird that they were like at the peak at the same time. You know, like
Mhm.
the Rock was always like 1A. Well, Austin was the number one guy. But yeah, man, the Attitude Era was. I mean, I watched so much. I consumed so much. I would tape Monday Night Raw and on VHS because that's how old I am. But I would take.
We're the same age, brother. We're the same age.
I love it. I love it. I'm amongst the good people.
Oh, definitely you are. Believe me. You watch our previous episodes. That's how we talk about the Attitude Era and the current. You know, that's what we do.
Because I would tape Monday Night Raw, and then watch it all week long, every day, and then on the following Monday, tape over the same tape Monday, and then watch it all week long. And I would just watch one Monday Raw, and then tape over it again and watch the next week all week long. And then I think like at some point it like clicked in my head where like I was able to tell like when a person was going to turn on somebody, and when some weird swerve was going to happen. And like so it became annoying for my friends because like I would sit there like, oh no, and they're like, what? And I'm like, Steve Austin is going to turn on the WWE to join the alliance, and they're like,
I remember. That's when I got into it.
They're like, what? And I'm like, look at him. He's selling his knee. Like he never sells anything. And they're like, yeah. They're like, what are you talking about? And the next thing you know, Steve Austin turned. Yeah. I remember predicting that when Chris Jericho was going to debut, right before it happened, like the countdown's happening. Me and my friend are sitting there, and we're at my house. And we're watching Monday Night Raw. We're waiting the countdown to quit, and it just like clicked in my head, like, you know, we haven't seen Jericho on Raw on Nitro in a long time. I was like, huh, that's weird. And I turned, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if it was Jericho? And then Jericho. We both like had this big like this mini mark out moment between the two of us in my living room, loud like little girls.
Some guys in my high school told me for a fact, like the day of that afternoon, that was Jericho, and I was so disappointed because I love Jericho so much, even up until that point before that debut. But I didn't know that he was going to debut, and so when they told me, I was like, I would have really liked to have been surprised at that because I would have marked out so hard. I was crushed knowing that my favorite wrestler, big debut was spoiled for me. I would have been going ape shit at that countdown because that countdown when the lights, break the walls. I was like, this would have been so much cooler if I didn't know it was him.
Right? Yeah, I know. I feel sorry for you now.
Nah,
Colin, man. to have because I know because
I'm still not over it.
I know because I felt that moment. Like I had that mark out moment for what happened, and then for me to have someone to take it away from me, I would have been upset. I wouldn't have let it go.
I know, yeah. How about this?
Who wants to be the one like to ask this one? But how was Dark recently? Working on Dark, and who'd you see backstage? Who'd you talk to? What was the whole atmosphere of AEW like being there on Dark?
Especially with the bubble they're in at the daily place, the quarantine and getting you out there.
Yeah, like I guess that was the first taping that they had to deal with a lot of that, like brand new protocols and stuff like that. I guess there was a big outbreak like in the taping right before, so they were extra cautious on those things. I had to make sure to get a COVID test before I got there, and then I had to take another one when I was there. Yeah, it was like a dream, man. It was just like, what am I doing here? Like, I have no business being like, I'm such a downer on myself that like I'm sitting there like going, I could think of like 6 other guys that in SoCal that deserve to be here before me, and I'm just grateful. I was happy to be here, so I was trying to sink it in and enjoy it and savor it everything as much as I could. It's not so much a tense locker room. Like if I've been backstage at a WWE event, and that's really tense. In a WWE locker room where you're really walking on eggshells. Backstage at AEW, not so much. It's pretty laid back. Professional. Everything. It's like a smooth machine, man. These guys that are, I don't think like the production guys and camera guys get a lot of like praise and a lot of love, but man, the way that these guys work to set up a ring and set up the rest of the show and the stage and the screens and everything, like to get that done and then tear it down and then get it back up a day later, like you got to give it up to those guys. That but being back there, like of course, like a lot of people that I had worked with were backstage, so it wasn't too foreign, like
because you're pretty good friends obviously with Peter Avalon, Scorpio Sky, Kazarian Daniel, so pretty much all the SoCal natives, that were wrestling at the time, Baldwin Park a lot, especially Cage especially. So you're already familiar with all of them because you're really good friends with all of them. So
there was a lot of people like that from bar wrestling, especially from Baldwin Park and the bootleg times. Like Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, a lot of these guys that I had worked with and partied with in the past. So like it was an easy transition, and it felt good. It was one of those things where like I could fit in here, but hopefully.
Hopefully, man, we're brave.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we're brave for you, bro.
The crazy thing was that you guys want to know the craziest part of that whole trip is that I was there for about 5 days, and I didn't see Peter Avalon once.
What?
Wow.
Are you serious? You didn't see Peter at all?
At all.
At all.
At all.
Compared to like how much you saw maybe like the guy like Jericho or Omega or Cody or any of the Bucks,
Yeah, they were all there, man. They're the bosses. They're running the show. What's interesting is to see how they mesh the two like two different mindsets or two different ideologies when it comes to the way that they present wrestling. And of course, there's like Cody Rhodes and his storytelling, psychology based, old school style of professional wrestling. Right. And you got like the Bucks and Kenny, and then there's this new wave, this new style of ultra fast, high impact, spot style. Well, not necessarily full on spot style, but that have such a harsh contrast to each other. These two different styles within the same company, and how they mesh them together with the different. You have so many toys to play with when it comes to all these different wrestlers, and how to utilize them. It's interesting to watch. It's cool to see like how they tightrope that between the two styles and the fans, trying to give them a little bit of everything, because variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
And it's cool that they were able to mesh the styles.
Yeah, definitely. So before you, so how did it come? Speaking of Peter, so how did it come along? You guys becoming a faction, throughout your career when you were at the singles in the beginning, and how did you meet Peter, and then how did it all begin between you guys? Between you guys with PPRAY.
I met Peter Avalon in my first match. That was the Battle Royal where I was the cameraman in the mask, and that's when I first met him. And I remember him. We were in the Battle Royal, and he was choking me in the corner, and like we didn't really like. We just like more like it was like a high buy type thing. And then he was choking me in the corner of this Battle Royal, and then I'm like, "Hey, I got a spot coming up." And he's like, "All right, let me know when." And I go, "Now." And then he like lets me go and like sells away, and then I'm able to run my spot. But like the way we were communicating, and it was like, okay, cool. And then he was the hot rookie in the scene at the time. This was like 2010. He was the hot rookie in the scene, and I just debuted maybe a few months shy of him, so I was watching him progress, and I really wanted to work him because I was like, hey, I want to wrestle this guy. And throughout my entire career, whenever somebody tells me that, hey, this guy's really good, or hey, this guy's so like he's the hot young upstart, blah blah blah, and it's like I can watch any of their matches, but the way that I really know, or I'll ever really know, is that I have to wrestle them, anybody that's like, dang, this guy's really good. This guy's the best. Like, I think I had a lot of, Andy Brown, he was coming up in EWF. Like, everybody's like, dang, Andy's really good. Andy's really good. And this is that. He's going to be something special. And I go, well, I'll have to find out. And then I made moves to go to EWF and wrestle Andy. And we had our very first match, man, we had a damn, we had a really good one. And that's the same thing with Peter back then. It's like, man, everybody's talking to Peter, and I have to wrestle him, because if he's good, he's going to make me better. You know, and if you know, and that's just kind of how I saw it. Like, I'm just going to try to wrestle people better and learn from them, and then make myself better. And we had our first match in EWF, the Empire Wrestling Federation, and we were like 15 minutes, and we went like 5 minutes over the time we were supposed to go, but because we were just feeling it. The crowd was hot, and we kept going. And Justin Borden was our referee, and he was like, "Dang, you guys have." After the match was over, it's like, "That was a really good match. You guys have really good chemistry." And we were like, "Oh, cool." And we just kind of floated on the scene for a while, you know, mixing up on shows together. Sometimes we'd team, sometimes we wouldn't. I think we teamed on PWG. We still weren't officially PPRAY yet, but when I made my debut on PWG, we were teaming together, and we were just like, dang, this feels good. It's like, it feels organic. It feels like it feels right. My wife would tell me, "It's like, you should just team with Peter," you know, and I'm like, I don't know if Peter wants to do that. He's probably doing his own singles thing. And then I remember she told me she talked to Peter when we were after showing time, and she's like, "You know, Peter said the exact same thing you said. Like, he's not sure if you want to team with him and this and that." I'm like, that's so weird. And
Cool.
and then we come to find out that we were born on the same day. We have the exact same birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
So
fucking amazing. That's a
So yeah, I
trip.
gotta say, this is like a romance. It's kind of like a romance novel. It's like, I'm not sure if they like me. It's like,
Yeah.
they were saying the same thing to you, and then you fall in love. But this
Yeah.
is like the actual
Romance.
In the
romance.
ring.
I think we officially started teaming when we were at Championship Wrestling Hollywood. He was feuding with like Ryan Taylor, now known as Rust Taylor.
Russ Taylor, yep.
And you know, I was feuding with Terry. I was like his just helping him out with that feud. And then we were just doing like 6-man tags or tags, just to kind of like, when you're in a singles feud, what do? You make tag matches so that it progresses the feud without giving off the blow off match. So we would team a lot, and we had such good chemistry. And then I think what we realized we wanted to be teams when we had a handicap match with Terex on Championship Wrestling Hollywood. And then we came up with like our most famous double team move there, like just by you know, messing around. It's the one where I'd crossbody the dude in the corner, trapping him, and he bases off my ass and hits the enziguri.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, we called that the smash and dash. And so once we did that move, we're like, that's it, we're going to be a team. So then we started looking up matching gear, and we started pursuing bookings as a tag team. And pretty much from like 2011 all the way up until, you know, before you got signed, we were teaming regularly and consistently for a long time. I think we had like a little break in between of like maybe 4 or 5 months just doing our own thing. But then we made Hate, and we reformed, and man, we've been, you know, been tearing it up ever since. It's one of those things that just feels right, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah.
I gotta say, is there a preference that you lean towards, like tag team wrestling over singles, or do you like singles more and tag team, or vice versa? You know.
I like tag team when I'm with Peter, for sure. You know, I've been in a lot of tag matches, and they're fun. If I'm not teaming with Peter, then I want to be singles.
Definitely.
You know.
So it's either Peter or nobody, basically.
Yeah, and I tried teaming with a few other people after Peter had got signed, and there was some, you know, some good stuff, and it wasn't quite the same magic. It felt like I was just trying to remake PPRAY. Like every attempt at a new team was just like, unless I were to like revamp the character, the Ray Rosas character completely from the ground up to model after the person I'm teaming with, that'd be the only fit. But I think every team I was making or trying to make would be just a rehash, and I didn't want to do that, you know.
Like putting Leaf Cassidy in the new Rockers.
Exactly.
It's not the
Yeah,
same.
because I'm definitely the Janetti all the way.
You killed the guy when you were 14?
Probably. I don't know.
Probably in high school. Never know.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's a whole different episode. So in a humble way, I want to bring this up because it's a very relatable story, but I have a very similar story to yours with the background to the independent scene.
Yeah.
I had gone through early incarnation of Revolution Pro with Super Dragon and Excalibur before they had gone to PWG.
Cool.
It was Santino Brothers. Was that what it was called when you first started there?
Yes.
Okay. So they had you be the cameraman before you actually got in the ring.
Yes.
Yeah. So
You
they had
had
you like
to work your way.
Yeah, they had me be the ref, and then when I started wrestling, I would go from the ref to my gimmick back to reffing. And my first gimmick was the El Gallinero gimmick, which had been passed down from lucha to lucha.
I was El Gallinero once.
Okay, so I see that on your wiki right there as El Gallion. My question for you was, did you have to start with what I consider a hazing gimmick before you were able to come up with something of your own? Because I was El Gallinero. It was at least 2 people before Scorpio had it. So I don't know who was after me. I think Top Gun Tall was the second Gallinero. Scorpio was 3. And by then they had given me my own gimmick. So I think it's almost like a graduation present for you to no longer have to be that character.
Yeah.
Did you go through something similar where you're like, here's a dog shit gimmick that sucks, but you want to do it?
Only once. Like when I was doing the Battle Royal, I was a Santino kid, and I had just a plain black tights, plain black mask. And that was it. The only time I was ever not me. And then we did a show. Actually did a show with Ron Rivera, and it was for the Electric Daisy Carnival. This was a crazy story.
Yeah. EDC.
So EDC at the Coliseum, and that's when I had to wear the El Gallinero stuff.
Describe that for me, because the version I had, I want to hear what your version was, because mine was bad.
Man, it was, Jesus, it was. God, it's hard to explain because I'd never been to any type of rave ever at all. Maybe like once in the middle of the desert, but like never like something of that scale. And we had like these all access like passes, so we're like changing in the locker room of like where the Trojans would normally change. And then we'd have to. And the ring was like not in the middle of the field or anything. The ring was off on the side, like behind the stands. So it would take a 30-minute walk from the locker room to the ring. And then the referee just sitting there waiting to like when the next match is going to come. So if we had to time it just right. So like right when the match ended, they'd be walking back, and then the next match would be walking to the ring. And there was guys like jumping into the ring. There's guys throwing stuff into the ring because it's like, it's EDC and it's like night, so like it's hard to even see anything. And it's funny because I took a bad Doomsday device. I took a Doomsday, and I got knocked out, and then I don't remember the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's a good story. Yeah, when you get knocked out, that's what happens. Fuck.
It was just a mass sea of humanity because we went all the way to the top, like of the Coliseum on the top row, and we're just watching the like it's just weird, like it's just like looks like one of those little computer sound waves, like when you're looking at Windows Media Player and you're playing your music.
Oh, just like
yeah. So it's just like you just every bass bump, you just see it shake. It was just sea of humanity. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Probably because I got a contact high from all the guys that were there, but mixed in with my concussion. But it was an amazing sight.
So was that event was put on by Ron, American Wild Child, and then he gave you the gimmick for that one match, and that was your experience with it?
Just that one night. So
okay, so my outfit was Halloween's pants. Was he still handing those down? Because he just
it was so long ago, man.
Yeah, dude. Like they didn't even fit me. I was 16, and Halloween's a big dude. He's like, here, wear these pants, wear this shitty mask. You're this character, and I was like, all right, whatever. But it took me maybe 6 months as that character before he's like, okay, you've proven now that you're ready for your own gimmick. But you only had that one battle royale that was. And then after that, they were like, who do you want to be? Let's develop that character for you.
Yeah, pretty much. And Santino's was good enough with their marketing and that they were like pumping out videos all the time to try to create content and have a presence online. So like we were always cutting promos in character. We were always putting videos, and they were just coaching us. We cut it, and then they put it on. So even though we weren't having shows, people could watch these little videos, little snippets, and see us training, see us working out, and then see our characters develop. So even though they weren't running shows or we weren't on a lot of shows, we were always pumping out content, so people kind of were familiar with us if you were to like look it up. But the Santinos really cornered the market in that respect. Like they had Google ads, so like anytime you looked up Pro Wrestling School, Santino Bros pops up.
That's how I found them. I mean, like I haven't trained. I was gonna look at them earlier this year, and then COVID hit, so I was like, fuck, that's gonna be out of the question. But yeah, that's definitely a school closer to me. I mean, I got Rikishi's like a block away, but that's like $8,000 a month.
Yeah.
Something like that. I was like, oh, I get it. But yeah, I definitely had found them through just a quick wrestling school near me. Bam, right at the top of the list.
Right there, yeah. So they like Mongol Santino. He was really good at that marketing and business side of everything. Like Joey took care of the wrestling and the training, and Mongol took care of the business. So they were a 1-2 punch, and now the school is probably the most prolific school out here right now. And they pumped out rookies of the year and stars. The whole balance of power is tipped in their favor. They're the school to go to, and when companies come out here and production companies for film shoots, like they're the number one choice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah. So you mentioned wrestling at a rave, which is pretty cool in and of itself. What are some other unique venues that you've had to perform at?
Let's see here. Okay, wrestled at the rave. God, I know there's some good ones too. Wrestled in of course, parking lots.
Oh yeah, definitely parking lots.
Just tons of parking lots. Gosh darn it, fairs. I know there's a place that I've wrestled in this. Like, what am I doing? I wrestled on the beach.
Ooh, okay.
Like the ring was on the sand and the water was right there. It was called Volcom Mania. So like there was like a surf competition that was sponsored by Volcom.
Oh, okay.
And then they had the ring on the the wrestlers.
Did you have to bump on the sand?
I took a back body drop on the sand.
That must have not hurt at all.
It was fine, but like of course it wasn't for the public. It was just for the competitors.
Right.
So they in between their heats or their sets or whatever, they would just watch us wrestle, and that was a fun one. Oh man,
was that in like Santa Monica or something or?
No, I want to say it was somewhere in the OC.
Okay, so probably like Newport or something.
Yeah,
Did Volcom just like hit up Santino where they're like, hey, we're putting this on. You are the most reputable, brand we want. Come do this for us.
I'm pretty sure it's how it went down.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Trying to think. I know there's some weird places I've wrestled in. Oh, I've wrestled in a gay bar, and the gay bar is not the weird part. But the weird part is the weird part is that the ring was 9 by 9 feet.
What? Wait,
yeah.
Like less than half.
That's way less than half.
Yeah, so I could touch the turnbuckles.
Like both of them at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time.
Oh shit! That's
It's a
like
hot
the
tag. Did you have to do a hot tag?
Yeah, we did like a whole head scissors spot in there, and the ropes were like super tight. So if you try to like springboard off it, you would just get launched like 25 feet in the air.
Oh,
but because it was custom built to like fit inside the bar, but we had it out in the parking lot. But
West Hollywood.
It was the fault line.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I just know I'm a Lyft driver, so in Hollywood, so
yeah.
I know exactly that little strip right there on the like Santa Monica and Robertson. Yeah, they're all
That's on
my bars.
It was a great experience, but the ring, because of the ring, first off, it's like up, like if I'm standing next to it, the ring would come up to here, the apron would be here on my chest. That's how tall it was, and it was also 9 by 9 feet, so it was custom built to fit inside the bar. Because I think they're having events. Boxing events and MMA events inside the bar, but that event was called Jocks on the Lot. So it was just like,
of course it was.
It was like a bunch of. So they had a boxing match, they had some MMA fights, and then they had a pro wrestling match. And it was me and Pinky Santino against Angel Exotico and Mariah Moreno, who was then known as Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
And we was just like, so it was crazy. It was crazy because that ring was so small, and we made it work. And Pinky was like 6'7", and he's taking head scissors in there, and he fit and he made it work. But
that's awesome.
There's probably some other crazy places I just can't remember them right now. My CTE is acting up.
It was that rave, man. That Doomsday device.
Yeah, that Doomsday. Yeah. Oh my God. Damn. I must. Well, after your separation from Peter, when he was called up, to AEW, and then obviously you were continuing doing singles. I see that you also you're a head coach for Millennium Pro Wrestling. Am I saying it correctly? Is that
Yes, Millennium Pro Wrestling. Became a head trainer there at Millennium Wrestling Academy. That was about 4 years ago. I had a bad falling out with Santino's, and we had a split.
Yeah.
And the first place I went to was the Underground Empire Wrestling. So we're there with You Suicide. And he took me in. He made me trainer. First time anybody gave me a training job was because of You Suicide, and I wasn't really comfortable. And that's where I kind of learned how to teach and learning on the job. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I kind of like this. And then when the venue and building that they were running out of got shut down, I had just started wrestling at Millennium. And the thing about Millennium, it's in Moorpark, and it's like it was a bubble within itself. Like nobody talked about what was going on there, and none of the wrestlers, they were all young kids. Like they never went out anywhere, and it was like a weird, it was such a weird mix where it was like these young kids that were like less than a year in wrestling guys like Brad Maddox and Hot Young Briley and like Luchasaurus.
Mm-hmm.
Before he was Luchasaurus, but that's so weird that there's all these ex WWE guys and all these year one, less than a year rookies and various other low-level talent that was there in this bubble. And I'm like, that's a perfect place for Ray Rosas, because I'm the guy that's going to give those guys good matches on both ends. I can put over the top guys, and I can help get over the younger guys. So I talked to a referee who was working there, is Danny Munchichi Ramirez. So I was talking to him, and it's like, hey man, you got to get me in there because I can help. And at this time, I just got done doing an ROH seminar, and they had hammered into my head that if you want to make it in this business, you have to make yourself a commodity. You have to approach companies and let them know that you can help make their company better. So I was really into I'm going to go everywhere, and I'm going to prove my worth by helping everybody that I can. And that's a mantra that I kind of still follow by today, where everywhere I go, I'm going to do the best that I can and prove to this company that I can be a commodity for them and help business grow. So that's mutually beneficial for everybody.
Definitely. That's the best model you can ever have.
Oh yeah.
Is that the same MPW that used to run out of Woodland Hills? Because
yes,
they were brand new when my wrestling career wasn't long, but they were just forming. And I think their inaugural event had Loki versus Super Dragon out of a Jewish community center in Woodland Hills. Yeah,
it was with Cincinnati Red and Logan X.
Logan X. That was my very first win ever. I was a jobber. My first win was Logan X, and he didn't like that. But that it was 20 years ago. I think we squashed it. So yeah, okay. So I'm just curious on who's still in the scene that kind of taken over where I left out, and it's awesome to see so many of these people. I can name drop a lot of people that we both know. I'm not going to do that because I did that at previous podcasts, and but to see so many people still in it, that, I was that's super sick. To see where they've gone. I talked about Scorpio Sky earlier when he was coming out of Hard Knocks. He'd come to Rev Pro for a little bit. He was straight out of the backyard. Now he's on AEW Dark. Or not even Dark. He's wrestling Jericho. He's beating Jericho, right?
Right.
What the absolute shit?
Dynamite.
Yeah, you're now on TV, shit like that. I just I'm proud to see people from my scene, even if we've never met before, going somewhere with it. And it's great to see and great to watch, to see evolution and of just a culture that I love so much from literally my backyard.
Yeah, man. It's something that's very near and dear. It's our scene. We're proud of it. All the guys that come out of it, and that's one thing that I was just I'm gonna try to make the scene better. I'm at least leave it better than how I found it. And
yeah, that's a good attitude right there.
Because I'm getting up there. I'm not old. I think I'm old by wrestling standards for a guy that hasn't done a whole lot. So I was like, okay, cool. My legacy is going to be the guys that I train, the guys that I help. And so when UEW had shut down, Millennium called me the very next day and was like, come over here and be a trainer for us then. And I was like, of course, great, thank you. I'm a kind of guy if you have my back, you ride with me, I'll ride with you. I'll have your back. So I'll try to reward loyalty, because if they're gonna get behind me, I'm going to give. If I have to prove that, you know, that they didn't bet on the wrong horse. You know, that I have to go out there and prove that I am their man. And I had to take a lot of those kids that were just in that bubble, and you know, show them the ways, because they're like only had one set of training, one set of eyes watching them, and now it's like, let me take all this experience that I picked up from, you know, all these different areas, these different styles in the SoCal area, and bring it to you. You know, I think one of my favorite people, one of the two favorite people I trained with was Los Luchas, and they taught me so much stuff and helped really refine my lucha libre style. So now I just took everything that they taught me and then threw it at these kids.
Awesome.
and you know what I mean? It just forwarded, you know, just like, oh cool, here's just keeping they're like all, you know, and that's, and everything that Los Luchas are teaching, that taught me, that I taught these kids, is stuff that American Wild Child taught them.
Dude, he was so good. He made it make sense, dude.
Yeah, so it's like, so these kids that are my students now have a legacy that goes all the way to American Wild Child, to Angel Exotico, to Joey Chaos, Supreme, and then from beyond them to Mongo, from Slammers, all the stuff he taught me that he learned from Slammers, and it's just who's that, Vernon Langdon? I think that was the head trainer there, but then also Dynamite D. All this kind of this wrestling DNA or this wrestling genes that's been passed down, it's just going to them, and that's like cool to be the conduit that helps that flow.
Yeah, I still remember the way Ron would explain stuff. Like, yeah, he would just like, I would get it, like, not like, I wouldn't perfect whatever technique, but the idea behind it stuck. I wouldn't be like, I don't understand those 3 sequences. He would just like, he'd be like, oh, when you want to do a backflip, it's called the mortal. And just remember, like, there's more towels back there, so roll to get them. I was like, oh, I got that. That's perfect. Like, he would just, I was 16, so like, he would just make it make sense. And it really stuck with me.
Yeah, man. And being a trainer has been so rewarding, you know, because it's like you get to discover, because again, I had to learn how to teach people, and that's a whole different thing. Like, to have to learn how to teach people, because we had so many students that had different body types, athletic ability, you know, maybe handicaps you have to work around, and it's just finding ways to help them get to the next level in their own ways. Man, it was so rewarding, because like to watch them grow, to watch them succeed, and now a lot of them have branched out. A lot of them have good reputations, and it just makes me proud as a trainer, like as a wrestling dad, to be like, oh man, these kids are going to do it, and it just helps, you know, my legacy.
Mike, do you have any? I know, because our friend down here, Mike, with the beanie and glasses, he's a teacher as well. Mm-hmm. So you kind of can tap into like when you learn to teach, you know, like.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, you get into it wanting to inspire people and, you know, help them get to that next level, you know. So I can definitely identify with that. And especially nowadays that we have AEW and WWE, you know, the Wednesday night wars and stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to get your thoughts on, what do you think about this new war that's taking place nowadays, you know?
It's nothing but good business. It's exciting to watch, you know, because, you know, it's not as big as the Monday Night Wars. I don't think anything will be, but because it transcended just the 2 wrestling companies. It was also about the 2 networks, USA and TNT, and so I think it was, you know, that's what transcended. You know, TNT and USA right now don't really. Not really caring. They're showing reruns of Resoled and Isles and and SVU. You know, they're showing, you know.
I think USA is also like, well, I think they moved NXT to Tuesday, or did they move it back or something?
No, it's back on Wednesdays right now.
When it wasn't on Wednesday, they were like, well, why would we compete with viewers when we can just have our own share of those same viewers on our own night? So they had a more progressive look now than they did back then. For sure.
Another difference is that people have DVRs and they have streaming services. So if I miss something, I can just go on Hulu and watch it again.
No more VHS tapes?
No more VHS tapes.
You have the network now.
Yeah, the network now. So it kind of it changes everything a little bit. So the old school party is like, yeah, Wednesday Night Wars competition is good. Let's see who's the better show. But you know, but in the modern age, that's not even the case, because again, you can just watch it at your own pace. You know, you can watch both
whenever you want. You know.
Yeah.
Ray, big question about since you're teaching and everything, about like a little bit of the technical side. How did you come up with your current move set, and you know, what are your favorite moves you use? What's your finisher? You know, because I've noticed, you know, just from what I've seen of you on Dark, you know, you like to do like the jumping elbow, you know, but like, you know, your move set, you know, what do you like? You know,
I'm not really, I guess I'm not really athletic or agile, so I can't do a lot of like flips or anything. My cardio is pretty bad these days, so can't move very fast. But it's like I don't know, man. It's like I tend to do like everything in my career. I try to be different from everybody else. So I try not to do what everybody else is doing. Sans the super kick, I guess, is the only thing. Like
nobody's doing that. Don't worry about that one.
But I've always tried to like do what everybody else is doing. So I try to like stay away from like Canadian destroyers and stuff like that. But like the top rope elbow is because like I think like I was either like, well, should I do a diving headbutt? Should I do a frog splash? Should I do a moonsault? Should I do a swanton? And I just like, you know, I'm gonna do, and that's like I'm like, you know, I'm gonna do this. So, like at least in my head at the time was like the least fanciest move there, just an elbow drop. And I think it's one of those things that I did like as a joke, as like a dig, like, oh, I'm just gonna do an elbow drop, guys. You know, to the boys in the back. There you go. And then I was doing it, and then I remember like people were just like, wow, you got a lot of hang time, and you know, it's real pretty the way you kind of you pencil out a little bit, then you come in, and then I was like, okay, cool, and it became one of my regular moveset. And it's like it's such a basic maneuver, but the way you build it, kind of like Jake the Snake with the DDT, it's like it's a basic move, and people have eclipsed it since then, but it's the way that you use it, the way that you build it up, and it could be really effective, and it can be, if anything, could be a finisher if you use it correctly and do it right. But I think I stopped trying to do. People are so creative. I have to give credit to a lot of these like wrestlers out there that just come up with these creative moves or creative ways to get into it, and I'm not that creative, and I feel like when I watch modern wrestling, I tend to like subconsciously like take it. So like, oh, I'm gonna do this, you know, do this spot, and I'm like, oh wait, I saw this guy do it on TV, or I saw this indie guy do it on the show that I was watching. So I tend to like try to like not really pay attention. I think I went through a phase of just doing like ruthless aggression era moves of like, so I started doing like the Shelton Benjamin T-bone exploder, and like this one of these old Rey Mysterio moves where he did like do a leg drop through the legs, and then the overdrive was my finisher for a little bit. The
overdrive DDT.
Yeah, so
I remember that one.
So it's like, let me do these moves because nobody's doing them, and you try to find an era. But like you look at guys like the Revival, who are just pulling off of old, like 70s, 80s gems, and it's like, oh man, they're cornering that market there, and you just have to find an outlet or something for inspiration and pull off that. I think one of the things I was watching that I was pulling from, because they have such clever sequences and such clever finishes, was CMLL.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I where the way I won the PP3 Cup at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood was directly ripped off from Negro Casas, one of my favorite wrestlers, Negro Casas, where I had taken a bump. I was wrestling Anthony Idol, and he gave me a big choke slam, and I kicked out, and he was like in disbelief. He's talking with the referee, and they're like, he's like, you know, doing the whole like, what happened? Well, come on, ref, that was a 3 count, blah, blah, blah. So I crawl up behind the referee. I reach through the referee's legs, and I grab Anthony Idol's boot and pull it up so that he low blows the referee, and then I roll over and sell. And then he disqualifies Anthony Idol. I win the whole tournament, in the finals with the disqualification.
That's a pretty cool finisher. I gotta say.
I saw that, man. I saw that definitely. That was an instant classic right there. And that is Negro Casas right there.
I saw Negro Casas do that in a match. Maybe when I first saw him do it, it was like 5 years ago, and I waited and waited and waited for the right time to do that finish because I was like, I can't just blow that on any type of show. And I remember thinking, like, what's a way that I could win this? I was the heel, and I was like, what's the shittiest way that I could win this tournament without beating this guy clean? He was so big, I don't want to pin him. I don't want to beat him or anything like that. I wanted to do this as shitty as possible. And I thought, what, like that? There we go. That's the one. That's the time to use it. That's the perfect time to use it. And then everybody, I was getting lots of praise for it, and everybody was like messaging me about that's such a creative finish, or how'd you come up with that, or man, that was a great finish. And I was like, well, man, don't thank me, thank Negro Casas. He's the guy that did it.
Right.
That's awesome.
Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned backstage you had seen all these people that you grew up with in the scene, and you questioned, like, you were there. You're like, I don't deserve to be here. I can name 6-7 other wrestlers I know from the scene who are not here that deserve to be here. If you could pull one of those guys up and have a match in a promotion of your choosing, whether it's AEW or I don't know if you have a dream promotion or a place where you go that you're like, man, this is awesome, who would that be, and what promotion would you have that match in with?
It'd be Andy Brown. You know, Andy Brown is like, he's so close. He's ready to pop, like ready to get picked up. He should be, at least he should be. He should be on everybody's radar.
And where would you have that? Where would you have that match? How do you see that playing out?
Man, I mean,
it's fantasy booking right now. It's just,
because I know that we could do it at AEW, because I know that we'd have just enough story and substance and psychology and enough hard hitting spots to pull it off there. So that way it's exciting and it's engaging.
And it's somebody you're familiar with working with, so you already have the chemistry that could tell that story.
Yeah, because I knew when we wrestled each other for the very first time, and it was at Empire Wrestling Federation, and when we wrestled each other the very first time, never touched each other in any way. It was kind of like that Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, like never wrestled each other, but we wrestled at WrestleMania, and they had just that amazing chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
To a much smaller degree, but we had that chemistry. Like, dang, I wrestled him. We're having our very first match, and like, it's so good where we're looking at each other, and we're like selling in the ring. We're down, and we're like did a double, and we're looking at each other, in the way that the crowd is reacting, and like, and I was like, we got him. It's like, oh, we got this. It's like, he's like, this shit is fun. It's like, yeah, it's like we were talking to each other, saying shit like that. Man, this is fun. This is so fun. Like, oh man, this is going great. And like, and then we're wrestling, keep going, and so it's like that chemistry, and having that chemistry already, kind of like with Peter. It's like from the first time, having that chemistry from the get go, it was only going to get better when you had more matches later on. Because now you can tweak a little bit, and then boom. So if I was going to have pick one opponent from SoCal, it'd be Andy Brown at AEW.
Definitely, that will definitely sell, because I've seen you and Andy Brown in bar wrestling as well, as a team and as opponents, and you guys put fucking hilarious, awesome matches between both of you guys, and I love it. And you're right. I mean, Andy, he's up there like was as you. You're up there too. Don't put yourself down, man. I did see that video. But no, man, never feel that way. I know you wanted to retire, and I know, thank God, your wife saved you from that. Like, no, because you have a lot to give still. And right now, this is how I feel about it, because I'm a fan of yours, and the platform that you have, that you put it in championship in wrestling from Hollywood. Come on, you're double champ. I mean, right. Brother, you got a lot more to give, and I wish, and which I'm praying, I'm hoping you get that phone call. Like, hey, AEW, boom, sign you, or anybody, even NXT maybe as well. Obviously, we've seen Jake Atlas already there. Yeah. I mean, that's another alumni of yours. So why not? You still have a lot to give, a lot more to give. And
that's just yet to come. I actually want to ask this to you, Ray. Because you're used to enduring a lot of, very tough, stuff mentally. Right now, the G1 Climax is going on in New Japan. Would you ever consider someday ever competing in that with its grueling schedule and it being taking a toll? It's a very toll-taking activity, both mentally and physically. But would you ever want to compete in that someday?
In a round robin style tournament where you're wrestling like 7 days a week, right? Like, I guess. Yeah, man. Like, cause I want to do it all. I want to test myself in every facet. I want to.
We want to see you in that. I want to see you in that.
Because you find out what you're really made of, and you find out how you're going to wrestle these different styles, and it forces you to get creative. The closest we ever got to that was at MPW. We were running every Friday. We ran every Friday for a year. So we have the same roster of 12, 12 to 14 people, and we're running weekly shows. So we have to get creative on how we use our people and what we're doing. So like I would probably, that'd be the next step or next evolution would be like, okay, cool. Let's see how I'm going to do it this tournament style and not have the maybe when you're younger you're like, I can take all these matches and it'd be okay, but then as you're getting older, you're like, no, maybe one. But now I'm starting to feel these bumps. I'm gonna need an ice bath. But yeah, man, that'd be, it'd be a great experience to have and to a great way to test myself, because there's very little stuff left for me to test myself with aside from like the major big promotions, and that'd be one of them.
Have you even gone to the New Japan Dojo here in LA?
I haven't had the opportunity to go down there yet. Been busy with regular life, and I barely have enough time to fit wrestling in. Barely have time to fit wrestling in right now as it is. But I've been meaning to go down there. Like, I've been training with a lot of people and working with a lot of people that train there, so I've been able to pick up a few things. But I feel like New Japan is now a young man's game. Like there's a lot of young lines that are coming out of there, like Clark Connors and Carl Fredericks. Like all those guys are like in tip top shape, but they're like in their mid-20s and they're looking real swole and cut. They're like, oh, I'm gonna probably put a headlock on you, friend, and hold on to that and talk a little trash. Take the Chris Joker route a little bit. But I would love to go down there and check it out. That was one. Of course, going to Japan and wrestling for New Japan is always every wrestler's dream.
Definitely.
So this question is, I want the answer for myself, but it would absolutely be for the audience as well. Is you are a teacher right now. If you have like the school you're at right now, are you like full time at MPW when things are normal? Is that?
Yeah, I'm usually there about 3 times a week.
Okay, so with the COVID thing right now, there is just everything's dry, right? There's nothing's happening anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you guys have the world doesn't know when everything's going to open up, but do you have a plan for how you're going to approach that when it does? Are you guys waiting for
I did
regulations
before the second shutdown? Like, so we had that brief opening in June or I think July or when my
Planet Fitness in Burbank was open for literally 6 hours.
Yeah. So I during that first shutdown, I did develop a lesson plan that involved us like being like little, giving us our social distance, our physical distance. So I started incorporating sprints, like the cone sprints and some X drills. So like I was incorporating more agility work, because a lot of our guys weren't very agile, and same as me. So like I studied and researched like a lot of ladder drills, X drills, football drills, mixed martial arts footwork drills, boxing footwork drills, and so
That's awesome.
So what I had before we got shut down, I had like a lot of the area cleared out so that we were able to utilize the whole space, as opposed, because we always had chairs and guardrails up. So we're like, no, we got to get rid of all that. So jump rope over here and this and that over here, ladders over here. We're going to do box jumps over here, and it kind of looked up some of the different exercises that we can all get a workout and some cardio in without having to be right next to us. I wasn't planning to do any physical ring work, like where we got to get into the ring and touch each other and do drills. Like I was utilizing a lot of drills in the ring that one person could do by themselves, real fast, real effective, get a good, get the heart rate up, and then get out of the ring, and the next person goes in. So I was kind of approaching it that way until we got the go ahead to get full contact. Because of course, we need everybody to be safe, we need to be healthy, and we got to follow the rules.
Yeah, for sure, man. what's not heartbreaking per se, but exciting, but also kind of like I have to hold on to is that sounds like a style of learning I'd love to be a part of when that opens up. So I'm going to be coming that direction someday, hopefully within the next couple of years. If the world starts to figure itself out a little bit and, you know, things become safe.
Yeah, man, we're MPW is open to everyone, you know, and we've always tried to be very, very open and very, very friendly. And we're almost, it's funny because we're almost kind of like the anti-Santino in that respect, where we're not trying to beat you up and beat you out. We're trying to build you up right from the get-go and help you achieve your dream, because it's a crazy dream. It's a dumb dream sometimes to want to be a wrestler. And, you know, I'm gonna do everything in my power to help you live that dream, even if it's just to get you one match, even if it's to get you in the ring to be a referee or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever. And as Logan X has said, he's like, whatever stupid, dumb dream you have, chase it, because we only have one life to live, and you shouldn't waste it on what ifs.
Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will.
And so that's kind of, you know, what talked me out of, or what snapped me out of wanting to retire. And my wife was just being very supportive, saying like, you shouldn't retire because you still have a lot to give, and you're going to be, you know, you're going to regret it. You're going to have a lot, you know, you're going to always be left wondering what if. And, you know, God bless her.
I gotta say, it's very encouraging, because you're 5'8".
Yeah.
And I was looking for like role models, you know, I don't plan on getting into it, but just for anyone who's around like 5'7", 5'8", you know, and of course, you know, we've had shorter wrestlers before, but it's really encouraging, you know, just knowing about like wrestlers like you that are like 5'8", or like guys like Marufuji or Kenta, or the list goes on and on.
It's a little guy game now, I feel. You know, when I'm at AEW, I'm pretty average size for a lot of the guys that are there. Now the big guys, the tall guys, are the anomalies, you know.
Man, how tall? I mean, really, I know that every wrestler is always much bigger in person than you see on TV. Tell me about standing anywhere near Luchasaurus, because I can't understand how big that dude is in real life.
He's one of the few.
Yeah, where like
he's one of the few. It's like he's like that. He's pretty tall, man.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that'd be like. I'm only 6 feet exactly, so he's literally twice as big as me. So I would probably get vertigo just saying hi to him.
He's a huge man. Dinosaur. Oh, yeah. He's a huge dinosaur.
The only funny story about
65 mil.
The only funny story I had him with Luchasaurus was in Bowen Park. I congratulated him on his match. And here I'm trying to give you a beer. He ended up taking the wrong beer. He took the beer that I was drinking on it, and then he got mad at, hey, give me the wrong, you know, wait, give me an empty can. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to give you a full brand new beer, man. And like, Luchasaurus hilarious, but basically, what about any funny stories? I mean, any funny stories, you know, throughout the career, or what you've seen so far? Anything crazy?
Like meeting fans also, or
doing this podcast.
I love doing podcasts. You know, it's just a way to kind of talk.
We love having you.
Yeah. Man, let me see here. Peter and I always kind of have we have some pretty fun times. Usually what we'll do is like when we know we're not feeling a match, and it's usually a lot of times, but when we're not feeling it, like we'll be in the car and we'll just be burying and shit talking this like, why are we gotta drive so far? Why are we gonna be so long? We better not be late on the card. We complaining and bitching about it the whole drive, and then we'll like, you know, man, fuck this shit. We're gonna stop at the liquor store. We're gonna buy some tall cans.
There you go.
And you know, and then we'll go and we'll just tear it up, and even though like we're like not into it, but then we'll like at some point we'll just snap out of it. Like, all right, cool, let's put this match together. We can have fun, and next thing you know, and there's like multiple pictures of us just like after shows, and we're just in our Speedos, all our gear's thrown on the floor, and we're just drinking tall cans, and we're just, and then on the drive home, it's like, we're so fucking good, man, we're the best. It was like so it was like the opposite. Like we're just so full of emotions on the way there and back. And man, in terms of like funny stories, let me think. This is weird. It's my CTE acting up again.
Death Valley driver on
the okay. So when I wrestled Orange Cassidy at the at the Baldwin Park venue, and it was like a birthday cake match or
I was there. I was there.
So we had never met each other before, but he was really cool. And the thing about him is, yes, he takes such special care in when putting a match together, and it was so refreshing to meet someone like that. It's like, this needs to make sense for me, and and he was like, what would make sense for you? And I was like, oh, that's great. So anyways, like, we look at we had a birthday cake brought to us, and then we looked at it and we're like, we're gonna need another cake. And so we had to somebody get us a cake. So we started like, okay, we'll keep this cake underneath the ring, and we'll pull it out like a table. Like, we'll have this one cake here, we'll play with it a little bit, and then we'll get rid of it, and then we'll pull the other cake out like a table. And so we're putting the cake underneath the ring, and we used to rent the ring from Jesse Hernandez, the owner of Empire Wrestling Federation. So as we're like putting the cake under the ring, like, I'm on my hands and knees sliding the cake in there, and he walks and starts standing over me, and he's like, "You're not planning to use that fucking cake in my ring, are you?" And I'm like, we all look up, and it was like, and so then we had to like go, "Hey, look, don't worry, we're not gonna make a mess." He's like, "Fuck that!" And like, so we're like trying to like convince him to like let us use the cake, and we ended up having to pay a cleaning bill. Because we did it like, don't worry, it's not gonna make a mess. And then sure enough, it
did.
Yeah, it ended up all over, and it was one of the there's like just any antic with bar when it comes to bar wrestling, like,
oh my god, I have the match on in the background. That's a pretty fucking big mess, dude. Yeah.
That's
the thing.
I loved it. I mean, every bar wrestling event, that you were on, and you and Peter loved it, man. Yeah, I would go every fucking month.
Peter and I had that mindset because that we had to do something different to stand out, because there was like, bar would have a lot of top stars coming in.
Yeah. And
my very first bar wrestling match was a tag team match, and Cody Rhodes is the opponent, So it's like my very first bar match, and I'm going to be in the ring with Cody Rhodes, and so it's like this is the level of guys we're going to be competing with. So Peter, we got to think of things to stand out, So we weren't full on PPRAY yet. We were still like our hate version, our evil versions of us, with them all black and stuff. So so we were little by little turning back into the dancing PPRAY, and then later on it turned into stripper PPRAY, and that's a whole nother story. But I think what was the catalyst, what turned it was a Christmas show, and I was taking a shower, and I have all these weird wrestling thoughts when I'm taking a shower, like these ideas, and it was like, so I'm trying to think of something good for the Christmas, the Christmas match, because I think it was like the one where Macaulay Culkin came and knocked us on our asses, and it was we were teaming with Hornswoggle and Dick Justice was there, and so it's like we had a lot, and it's like, we're in this, but like, we're just in it. Like, I need to think of something for us to do that's going to help us like stand out a little bit, and that's when I came up. We got to do Dick in a Box, right? So like, I had like the day before, like, this is how, like, I'm in the shower the night before, and I'm like, oh crap, we should do Dick in the Box. So like, I had to get fanny packs, put a box on the fanny packs, and I had my wife wrap it with wrapping paper, and then we came out to Dick in the Box that night, and that was our very first bar bit. That's what I call it. It's our bar bit. And then from then on, we did the nipple tassels. And that was like one of those shower thoughts. It's like, oh, we're doing the breast cancer awareness show. Fuck, Pete, we should wear nipple tassels. So when we wrestled Arquette, we came out as the ghost.
The Stream.
Yeah, and Peter was a cop, and
Peter was a cop. He was doing.
What did Arquette say about that?
Oh, he was all about it. David's all business, man. He thought it was hilarious, and it was like one of those things, like, we're just trying to think of stuff to have fun, and then we did the weekend at Bernie's, where Peter got knocked out. So I had to like continue to wrestle the match for him, but he was unconscious.
Yeah,
and he's got like the
with
music, and then he starts dancing, or what?
Well, no, we did Weekend at Bernie's 1 because we were always going to go back to do a Weekend at Bernie's 2 where the dancing where he did the dancing, but it was just the first one. So I propped him up in the corner. It was me and Peter versus Curryman and Kikutaro.
Oh.
Right, and so so I put Peter up in the corner, and then I put the sunglasses on him, and then he was beating up, and so I helped Peter beat up Kikutaro until like eventually I jumped in the ring and he drop tools me, and I ended up going head first into Peter's dick, and that's what wakes him up, and then like that's what we're just trying to think of all that stuff to be funny and stand out a little bit. Man,
definitely, man, definitely. Oh man, I love it. I just love it, bro. Like you really bring me back to old school days. I just wish that bar, wrestling when we reopened, but a lot of BS been going on.
I've actually never
get into details into that, but Mike never been.
Yeah, I've never been to bar wrestling, so I've heard a lot about it in the past few months, and man, I really want to go when it opens up again. Or
if it does, we don't know because until proven guilty, there's a lot of shits going around with that. But
I don't know anything about that. I was going to say like right now is like, in my opinion, like the worst time to get the itch back to get in the ring. Because it's like, fuck. Like, it's like, oh my God, because I've been doing this podcast for like a month with these guys, and I'm meeting all these other people in the scene, and I'm hearing of all these schools that I didn't even know about. Like I didn't know MPW was still around until a couple weeks ago, and I'm just like, I met Tyler Bateman at my gym, and he was telling me about seeing Tino's. He's like, you should come down, and then a week later COVID hits, and I'm just like, fuck, man, I just have no options right now, and it's like I'm just scratching at the bit or
because this is the real test, because if and when it's all over, if you still want it, then you really do. Well,
I've wanted it kind of like in its own way since I've kind of retired, I guess you could say. I went the music route. But now that I moved out here to the Valley, because basically the only reason I stopped was because Ron kept moving around his gym, and then I was young enough to not have a car, so I just fell out of the scene just naturally. But now that I'm out here with all these resources, I'm just like, I'm seeing the world again through the eyes of a wrestler. So you come up with spots in the shower, I'm still doing that. Like, I'm like, fuck, this would be sick. I have this really cool finisher idea. I've got nowhere or no one to do it with. So like,
there's tons of resources out here in Southern California.
Yeah.
And it's, it's high time that just California, I think in general, starts to get a little, little action out here, to get noticed a little bit. From
NWA's coming to Oxnard or something like that.
Well, no, they're in Port Hueneme. That's where Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is, right? Is it in Oxnard?
Yeah, they're in Port Hueneme.
Port Hueneme.
And then they run the Thunder Studios, I think, in Carson on those.
I don't know where I heard NWA was doing something out there.
Yeah, prime time in the United Wrestling Network, or with and they do NWA co-promotions.
Okay, so I wasn't too off.
Yeah, but there's it's good to see like more SoCal people get put on a national spotlight, and it's long overdue, because we've had so many great wrestlers come through here, and I feel like it's been a real dry spell for like the last maybe 8 years. Maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, but I think that like right after PWG, I believe. That's my opinion. I think after
pretty much when PWG stopped booking locals, that's when everybody did.
Yeah.
Start booking California. Like 20 people that came out of PWG, but none of them are from SoCal, like as far as born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah. Well, definitely, I appreciate you very much for joining us, Mr. Rosas. I know we kept you a little bit long, and we do apologize, but it's great. We like to hear great stories, brother. I mean, hopefully you can join us again, man. Shit.
I would love to, man. And no worries, man. I love telling stories. I love talking about wrestling, talking shop with guys. You guys are a blast, man. Let me know when you want me back on.
Oh, definitely. Well, we normally do a top 5. Like we have a top 5 every Sunday, but I mean, we record it, early, but we put it out on Sundays. So the last one we had was our top 5 best high flyers of all time. So I think we're doing another one. We're doing next week. We're doing, what was it, Chris? You said top 5
best gimmick changes that were for the better.
Yeah.
Number 1, JBL.
There you go.
All right. Well, yeah. Take that clip and then just throw that on the episode.
And if he's available next week, we can probably get him in there. Why not?
Yeah, I'm down for sure, man. Like that list is gonna go by quick. I'm trying to think of people on that list that you guys aren't going to think of. Like, there's some obvious picks. I want to go obscure if I can. For sure.
Berlin from Alex Wright to Berlin and the wall.
Alex Wright to the wall. Yeah. Alex Wright to Berlin.
What a giant ninja.
Was he the German dancing queen or king or whatever he was?
Yeah. Or any of Brutus Beefcake's gimmicks.
All 25 of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I told someone about him becoming like the warrior or whatever, renegade or some shit like that.
I think it was Renegade.
NWO, and they're like,
Yeah.
he was Renegade, right?
Yeah,
Is that
Renegade.
who he was in NWO? I told my buddy that, who's a huge
Was he Disciple? He was Disciple in NWO.
That was it. Yeah. And I was like, that's Ed Leslie. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, that's Brutus. He's like, no fucking way. Yeah. He was like, what?
All he did was walk to the ring and stand in the ring or help Hogan win. Like, he didn't even wrestle matches when he became Disciple.
Yep.
Just got paid, brother.
Yeah,
got paid.
What a day to get paid, right? So we can get him doing Hogan. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, so let the viewers know, Mr. Rosas, where they can find you on your social media platforms.
Yeah, you could follow me on Twitter at Ray Rosas. And I'm at Ray Rosas, not the Ray Rosas with the underscore at the end of it, because I've been having some issues with some fake Ray Rosas pretending to be me. It's quite annoying. But
that's an angle.
At the same time, I think it's what do you call it? It's a status symbol, like a symbol status, because now I'm popular enough where people are going to try to pretend to be me and make parody accounts and imposter accounts. But
they hate us because they ain't us.
They ain't us?
Ain't us.
Ain't
You honeypotting me? He's gonna take her.
I love that movie. But yeah, at Ray Rosas, all one word on Twitter. On Instagram, you can send me a follow request at other Ray Rosas, because the original, I wanted to get Ray Rosas on that, but somebody had already taken it. So other Ray Rosas on Instagram. Facebook, I don't go on too often, but you can send me a Facebook friend request if you want. We could talk. We could talk.
Oh, it's not going to show it. Oh, that's weird. I was trying to hold up the gram right there. No worries. Followed. Done.
Hopefully, you'll be seeing a lot more of me on places. And,
we definitely, hopefully you get to see you more in AEW or, heck, maybe one day NXT or maybe in New Japan, anywhere, man, any independent circuit.
Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah.
I put his name in YouTube, man. He's got I think a plethora. There's at least a couple dozen matches here featuring Ray Rosas. So I would definitely do your homework if you haven't seen any of his work. That kick match is, you just type in Ray Rosas, Orange Cassidy. It's the first match at the top. That looks like a banger. I'm gonna watch that in its entirety right after we're done here.
I'm about to watch your match with Carl Fredericks too. You have a match with a young lion who just graduated. This young lion.
Yeah, Carl's a great dude. I was wrestling Carl. Here we go. And get me in another story. Go for it. I wrestled Carl Fredericks in one of his first matches. That's how old I'm getting. Where now I can talk about stuff like that. But I wrestled that kid in his first match. It was for not his first match. One of his first matches. He's a student, or he was at the time a student of Adam Thornstove, the Reno Scum. And he was it was for a promotion called Bumps and Bruises at some brewery somewhere in downtown LA, some real sketchy part. But the brewery was real nice. Anyway, we had to wrestle each other, and he was pretty green, but he's great shape, had a good head, because he's trained with Adam, so he knew what he was doing. And I'm like, hey man, we're gonna just we'll call a little bit in the beginning, call a bit at the end, and in the middle we'll just fuck around. And because I knew we're in a brewery, I know what kind of crowd we have here. And it was weird on some it had like a second level. So the ring was on the second level, and then there was some stairs, and there was a bottom level where other fans were sitting, and they could see a little bit. But I remember we were fighting each other, we were wrestling, and then I cut him off, I think a little bit for the heat, and I go, all right, we're going downstairs. So then we fight downstairs, and then I'm like, reverse this, and then whip him in, and then he whipped me into the wall, and I'm like, take over for a little bit, and then he would take over, and then I remember one time that. Once we worked our way back up the stairs, I'm like, cool, because we gave the people on the bottom a good show. Because they were, I'm like, cool, let's take it down to them, because nobody really paid attention to the people at the bottom. So I'm like, let's make sure to go down there. So we got down there, they got pops, and we were hitting each other with trash cans and stuff. And, it wasn't supposed to be a hardcore match. We just made it one on the fly.
I love it.
we work our way back up to the top of the stairs, and there's like these, you know, concrete stairs like on the inside of a warehouse. And I load him up for a suplex to suplex him down the stairs. And, you know, I'm like, block it. And he's like, at the time, he had no idea what I was doing. And he told me this later on, a couple years later after the fact. He's like, I had no idea what you're doing. And then when he told me to block it, I was like, I froze up, and I was like, and then I was like, wait a minute, he's telling me to block it. And he's like, that's what it kind of, for him, he told me for him, that was the moment it clicked. Like, how do I call and how do I tell? I'm like, block it. Now give me a suplex, and then he countered it, so he suplexed me away from the steps. So like and I was telling him, like, it's, you know, wrestling's all about expectations, and how you either deliver on the expectation or you subvert, you know, and how you subvert will make sometimes be a better payoff than actually delivering. So we were teasing like you know, like, yeah, being I don't know if I was the heel or not, but I remember like trying to suplex him down the stairs, and then he suplexed me on the concrete, and then he rolled me in, and then he was in control like he was supposed to. Like, I think we just kind of paused the match that was happening in the ring, fought on the outside. You know, took a pretty, you know, simple bump, but it looks devastating for an average person, and then rolled me back into the ring, and then we just kind of continued where we left off in the match because he was supposed to be in charge. Anyway.
Oh, wow. I think I do remember that brewery. I think it only had a couple of events there. It wasn't that long at last. But it is a nice brewery though. But I don't know about the people.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry guys. I keep going on tangents.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. It's all good.
That's how long I've been in it, man. You have, if you have a favorite wrestler, chances are I've probably wrestled them.
No, but besides that, I mean, you're my favorite, so don't even trip. You're my favorite. You're my favorite.
Mine too.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, guys. That makes two.
We got. Believe me, I got friends that are, you know, big fan of yours, especially my other employee at Brass Monkey, Robert, which is going to be watching the episode because he's like, hey, mention my name, but I'm mentioning it to you now. So,
shout out to Brass Monkey.
There you go. And there you go. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.